Well, hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Nice to have you with us. I'm here with my colleague, Betsy Conners, and we're very glad to be bringing you Building the Success Culture and Relationships Matter. What a great title. As we go through the information, we build our materials so that all of our client schools are able to take advantage of the content. And we encourage you to take a look at the information and then consider, how might I use this with our leadership team or within my school? There is quite a bit of content information. We have some wonderful quotable quotes that always promote great conversation and key questions that you'll be able to ask to, again, build those important conversations around culture and developing coalitions and relationships. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you my very talented expert colleague, Miss Betsy Conners. Betsy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining time with us on this wonderful Wednesday. It's great to have you. I have been in the field now for quite some time, as you can see, for 36 years. And I have served in the positions that many of you serve in today, as a principal, as an ASI, and as an instructor at the collegiate level. Thrilled to have you with us. And Penny and I are going to take you on a little journey. How wonderful is it to have the CEO of the company with me today as my co-host?
Betsy, thank you. So let's start out with one of those powerful quotable quotes. This is from Carl Albrecht, and he wrote, as many of you probably know, The Power of Minds at Work. Just the title itself, I think, is very compelling. So when we look at this quote and note, when all or most of the people involved in the enterprise know what? Number one, they know what the mission is. And we know by definition, all of you who have engaged in strategic planning, the mission is about who are we, whom do we serve? That's crystal clear in the educational arena for sure. What do we do? At PLC Associates, we're really proud to say that we provide wraparound services and we stay with you until we get to the point where indeed you're achieving the results that you want and are able to sustain those results over time. And then why do we do what we do? So clear on mission. And then a sense of common purpose. I think there are two things there that really resonate relative to common purpose. Number one, if we did the walkabout and you were to leave your office and go out into the hallways and just stop people and say, this might be a little bit bizarre, but if you were to do it, what are our goals for this year? What are we looking at academically, social, emotionally for students, culture? Would people be able to answer that consistently right across the board? So not good enough, as we know, to just write the plan that we did maybe a month ago or more recently, moving into academic year 22 to 23, but to absolutely have everyone on the same page where the answers are the same. These are our goals and we're crystal clear about each of them. Then also with common purpose, shared values, and that belief system that's consistent across the board is so critical. That's really a grounding component that keeps us on the straight and narrow path. And then when we look at this next line, I love the verbiage and the nomenclature here. Do we understand the individual parts and the algebra of its success? So the words that come to mind for me are contribution margin. If we have those goals out there, right, and everyone's chasing the same goals, we have that shared knowledge, does everyone in connection with their position, whether you're a teacher, administrator, ASI, superintendent, understand what I do in terms of contributing to the whole? So just some powerful concepts as we get started. And you'll see to think about as you look at this academic year and all of our staff as they're working, so diligently, is there evidence of that all in on mission critical? Makes a big difference. So, Betsy?
So I want you to pause a minute and read through this leadership, the power of I. Just take a moment. So what we'd like you to do right now is pick two. What are your two favorites that move us towards increasing our leadership efficacy now? As you're reading through this, what are your two? Penny, what are you thinking as you read through this?
Well, it's interesting. We did the session this morning and my two are still my two. So I haven't changed my mind since then. But I'm thinking about, the third one down, do more than belong, I will participate. So actively engage, whether I'm facilitating or I'm in a group where someone else is facilitating, to really kind of lead the way and be all in by being more than present, but an active participant. And hopefully that helps, other people to kind of come on board so that we do have that free and open sharing. And the other piece, I feel so responsible in my position here at PLC and with Scaleris Learning to inspire. It's one thing to provide information, talk about various projects, talk about school structures and systems, but in addition to that, delivering it, I guess it's the delivery model, right? In such a way that people feel like they want to go on that journey with you. So those are my two. How about you, Bets?
Mine is the same with inspire, because I will do more than teach. I will inspire everyone that I interact with, no matter at what level of the organization, to want to do more and to really feel their work is valued. And then the other one that just resonates with me is I will serve, because we are in the service business. And one of the things that we want you to do while you're on here today, we're going to be sending you this PowerPoint. We want you to use our materials. We want you to walk away and say, wow, that resonated with me. I could use that tomorrow at my faculty meeting. That's what we do at PLC. We're your thought partners in the field, because we want to help you be the best version of yourself that you can be. This is one of my favorites. I've used this one for multiple years now, because when the principal sneezes or the superintendent sneezes, the entire district or the entire school catches a cold, right? Our impact is significant. I have the privilege of teaching new leaders, right? And I talk to them about how you come across to people is how you're going to set the tone for the day, the week, and the year. So we can never underestimate that whatever we're doing, people are reading it and they're taking their energy from us and how we approach it. And we're going to talk more about this, because you want to lead from that front. You want to be there to celebrate with them every step of the way.
And Betsy, I have a really good example of this leading from the front. We recently were at the NISCUS state conference with superintendents and other members of the organization. I can name the district because it's public information. It's Smithtown on the island. And we all know that's not the Caribbean. That would be Long Island. Different weather altogether. So we know that the work in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion has been somewhat polarizing, because people are misperceiving what we mean by that word equity. So what Smithtown did was to take a very bold stance and leading from the front, incredibly courageous. They posted position papers in terms of what does this mean? And really, as the assistant superintendent and superintendent said, got out in front of the grapevine, the gossip that was happening, and they actually dealt with all of the criticisms and the inaccurate pieces of information. At the end of that presentation, the other superintendents gave a rousing round of applause and really said to this district, well done. Talk about not hiding, behind a closed door, but truly leading as educators from the front.
Thank you for sharing that. And so I want you to think about then from John Maxwell, there is a lid on our limit to our potential that is determined by our leadership ability. But if we continue to grow our capacity, we grow our ability to impact every aspect of that organization. If we stagnate, so does our ability to have that greater impact. And I know all of you are certainly not stagnating, because you're constantly out there looking for, how can I get new information? How can I learn something new that I can walk away with as a new tool in my toolbox? So we want to think about your day to day. Just pause for a minute. What routines do we need to keep to ensure that there is no lid as we are learning and improving and inspiring higher continually? So today, were you in your office? closed door behind mounds of emails and paperwork? Because, yeah, that's always there. Or were you out walking through, giving feedback to teachers about the exciting things that you saw occurring in their classrooms today? Did you see the excitement in a student's eye as they learned a new concept? Because that's what we're in the business of, right? We're in the business of then being a cheerleader and saying, wow, that was an outstanding lesson because I saw the way that you integrated higher order questioning into everything that you did. You asked your students to synthesize and analyze. You didn't just ask them to regurgitate knowledge. Kudos.
And that really is lead learner, the concept of lead learner. All of the hundreds of schools that we've worked with, maybe past hundreds, more like in the thousands, something tragically that has been in place more than I'd like to comment on is a school that's not able to get past the leadership of the organization. And I think we probably can all point to something like that, where maybe you had an energized staff that had all kinds of innovative, creative ideas, but when it came to offering suggestions or sharing information at a faculty meeting or sharing something at our grade level or content area meetings, people would be very reserved and say, no, I can't say that. I can't suggest that. Why? Well, Mr. or Dr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so just wouldn't go along with it. So how tragic, right? And that's a situation where schools might be stuck because they can't get past the kind of line of demarcation that a dysfunctional leader puts in place. We have so much responsibility, and we know from Marzano's work, right? There is an appreciably strong impact from having a great leader school by school. So just kind of a caveat there. Creative tension, Betsy.
So this is the foundation of the work that we need to do this year. So as leaders, I ask you to think about, what is your current state? Just jot down, do a quick write, jot down what you think about it, the current state of your school or your district. And then where's your desired state? Where do you want to be at the end of the 22-23 school year? And how are we going to get there? How are we going to lead that work? I'm going to stress to you that we need to have a laser-like focus and not focus on 100 things, because we know that we're not going to be able to do that effectively. But what are those 1 or 2 things that you really want to focus on? And then, Penny, you talk so eloquently about that idea of the tension that occurs through this.
It's a positive. Tension is positive. I mean, by definition, denotating what the word actually stands for in the dictionary, it sounds like it's a negative, but we have to have some level of being uncomfortable and not tolerating, right, status quo. This isn't good enough. We can have something much better. I often comment, being the mother of 4 boys, one of my litmus tests when I would be visiting classrooms would be, would this be satisfactory for my 4 boys? And if the answer is no, then it absolutely is not good enough for anyone else's children or families. In the sense of urgency, now post-pandemic, more than ever, we have kind of a do now and get it done and escalate it, just to pick up from the past, couple of years and our students not be able to be in school and with their normal routines. And then that power of guiding coalitions. At PLC, we talk about, you're probably not going to have everybody. That's, unrealistic. If we have 85% or greater of our colleagues and staff moving in the right direction and talking very confidently about where we're moving, you have more than a great chance of achieving terrific successes. And for those folks that, aren't going along, my message would be, the train has left the station. And this might sound a little bit crass, but if you're not on that train and you are accepting a paycheck every other week or whenever that occurs, you're giving tacit approval that you're aligning with the goals and work of that particular district. So I think we can have kind of a no tolerance for those kinds of negativistic conversations that could be blockers. We have so much important work to do. And students, not to sound too melodramatic, who are absolutely looking at us every day and counting on us.
And Penny, you say about an opportunity on that last slide. One of the things that I wanted to share is that, 4 years ago, before I retired from the district where I was an assistant superintendent, we were doing strategic planning with PLC associates. And one of the things that we decided from our current state was that our classrooms look like the 1950s. Our desired state was to create learning areas where students were in the driver's seat of their learning, right? Because we know that for our students to be highly effective and our teachers to be highly effective, that everyone has to the teacher has to facilitate the learning. So we built the structures for that to happen. But again, it's having that vision and thinking about, where do I want to get to? And again, sometimes it takes more than 1 year, but you start making those steps. So based on that, this next slide, when we think about those strengths and those opportunities that the 2022-23 school year provides us with, what are we doing well? Meet with your faculty, meet with your administrative team. What are we doing well? What opportunities are there post-pandemic to continue this great work? And then there are some challenges. What are they? Let's be honest. Let's put them on the table. And then what are those threats? And those threats should not take us away from the work, but instead we should think of them as those road bumps that, yes, we're going to go over or around or under, whatever it takes, but we're going to acknowledge them, but we're not going to let them derail this work, because as you said, Penny, there is a sense of urgency and our students are counting on us. So we have to think about, let's celebrate those strengths. Let's look at those opportunities. Opportunities are problems and workloads, right? Opportunities are things that we can work together on. And it's going to take work, but we will do it, and we will do it together, because people are less likely to tear down fences that they help build. So all of this planning and this work develops that roadmap that your teachers will appreciate.
And Betsy, here's where we have to quote the very famous Betsy Smith. We talk about at PLC, we're fortunate to have two Betsy's in our group. And one of the things that Betsy has shared with us is we do not do problem admiration. And you probably can figure out very quickly what that is. We've all been in those meetings, right? Where there's a problem of practice and we talk about it, we're identifying root causes. We're all very good at that. But then you notice as time goes on, we're still admiring, talking about, and not shifting into a solutions orientation. So challenge to all of you, use the verbiage, and next time we get stuck, actually be able to say to the group, hey, team, colleagues, crew, are we in the trap of problem admiration? Definitely it'll get you to a new level of that conversation. Betsy, this is one of your favorite texts, I know.
Absolutely. So when you look through this, think about this. Structural change that is not supported by cultural change will be eventually overwhelmed by the culture. For those of you who are familiar with the multi-tiered system of supports, MTSS, the foundation of MTSS is about building that culture where we believe that all students can learn at high levels. And I'm very passionate about that work. And what I want you to be thinking of is, how do we build those collaborative teams that can come together and talk about student learning, and they're actually collaborating and not collaborating, right? Because that's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to people working together and a team to build a culture where we believe that, yes, indeed, all of our students can be successful.
And Betsy, truly, unless you do that wraparound culture, organizations are made up of just kind of a quick infrastructure talk. It's one of my favorite things to do. So organizations have structures. We have faculty meetings, we have student support services, we have data cycles, we have learning walks, we have common formative assessments. Just keep going right through the list. So think about, if those are the structures or the building blocks of the organization, within those structures, done right, if we're going to have a high-performing school or district, we perfect the practices. So take data cycles, for example. We make sure we bring the information full circle, act upon it, plan interventions, and continue that whole kind of cadence. So the point here is, if we have those things in place and the culture is not there as a sustaining kind of foundation and wraparound, those items, Schleckley and other researchers talk about it, and we see it empirically in our schools, will fall away. They can't sustain. So culture does not mean soft or the people side of things. It is a way of operating, a belief system, that can-do attitude that permeates. I mean, what does it look like when people come into the school Monday morning? Is it glad the weekend's over? That might be a little bit of exaggeration, but you know what I'm saying? Glad to be here, because when people start to bump into each other and they have that same kind of dynamic energy, like working with Betsy Conners, you can't help to pick up that spiritness. So culture.
And so we know from the work of Robert Marzano and his high reliability school framework, we know that level 1 is all about what we just talked about, that safe, supportive, collaborative culture. Think about, as you're getting ready to go out and visit classrooms this year, do your teachers invite you in to see when they're trying something new? Do they take a risk because they know that it's safe and supportive? Because relationships matter, just like in this title, just like we say to our teachers, right? Relationships with students. The same thing applies when you're a leader with your staff. And as Penny said, that doesn't mean you're soft. It doesn't mean, but it means we value everyone that's a part of that organization. And so when you build that safe, supportive, collaborative culture, you provide that foundational work that everybody's an equal on the team and that we're all learning together. And then with Marzano's work, you're working on level 2 and level 3 simultaneously, where you're looking at effective teaching in every room, and you're developing that conversation where teachers come together and say, wow, I noticed that you are rocking it on your assessments with X, Y, and Z. I'm not doing that well. Can I come in and see what you're doing? Can we have a conversation? And then we can have a conversation about what is that guaranteed and viable curriculum. But that's for a whole nother day.
You know, it's interesting as you're going through this, Betsy. Oh, Betty, I just changed your name. How do you like Betty? We do have fun here. It's okay. Obligatory fun is part of it. As new associates come on board here, there's no such thing as the new kid on the block or the lowest person on the totem pole. The minute they enter in, you've already earned your credibility stripes. And there's so much respect. You fold into this wonderful collegial culture. And what I like so much about that is it demonstrates that we're able to have some great conversations, point, counterpoint, back and forth, people who are veterans, with the group and the newest people to join. And everybody has that same high level of respect, which makes it so easy to get into these solutions-based conversations that take our schools to the next level. So I have to credit all of our associates out there. I think we're just up past about 65 talented people now. Core commitments to foster positive relationships. Talk about, I think there are 7 here, key items, and Betsy's going to take us through this, but one of the things I'd like you to think about is when people are in your presence, so you're facilitating a meeting or you're in a conference call, Zoom meeting, whatever, it's not so much how people feel about you, but ask yourself the question, how do people feel about themselves in your presence? After they leave a conversation with you, do they feel energized? Do they feel credited? Do they feel a part of it? Is it an inclusive kind of thing? Or do they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room? Long ago, I was fortunate enough to have a few bumps that caused me to really reflect and start to think about when people are, again, in your presence, what is it that you can do to have those elements operating? Because if you want to get together that guiding coalition and have people together as a group, surging, moving forward, that goes a long way. Betsy?
So as you're reading through these and building upon what Penny just talked about, I want you to think about transparency is so important, right? You can't give too much information. You want to share with people the why behind the work we're doing and the steps we're going to take to get there. And if you have a misstep along the way, don't don't hesitate to say, you know what, I need to rethink that. Or, you came into my office with this idea, and you know what, maybe I wasn't looking at that through the right lens. Listen to others, really actively listen. Are you hearing what they're saying? Have you put your phone away? Because that ties into be present as well. People want to be heard. They want to be listened to, whether it's a parent, a student, a staff member, it doesn't matter, a community member. They just want to be heard. So take the time to let them be heard. Welcome feedback, right? If there's something that I said or did, come and talk to me about it. Make sure you build that trust where, as Penny said, you're not only not the smartest person in the room, but you're also not just it's my way or the highway. You're really asking people to say, how did that go for you? How did that work? There was a principal I worked with who would use an I wonder at the end of every staff meeting. And at the end of every staff meeting, teachers would leave an I wonder. And then she would take them and publish them with the answers. And in the beginning, it started out kind of as a joke, but as time went on, it became part of their culture. And people knew they could put out anything into their I wonder, and the principal would address it. Give credit, right? When things are going great, boy, you are all doing a phenomenal job. And when things are going not so well, I really made a mistake, or the buck stops with me. And celebrate those successes. In education enough, we do not celebrate the great work that we're doing.
Great caveats there. We have a couple more slides. We have 3 minutes to go. So in terms of establishing this great success culture, critically important that we do have data that we use to create a baseline, and then of course set goals with, and then monitor and report progress. Nothing revs up an educational community more than being able to report out, whether it's to full faculty or at a board meeting. We put these strategies in place. This is the resource allocation that we provided, and look what happens longitudinally. Here you have some real results from one of our districts that many districts that went through the school performance scan and asking some really critical questions. If you take a look at number 11, school leaders frequently visit classrooms conducting informal walkthroughs. So they moved it up to 95.2% and are on that trajectory. So this gives us, a measurement of culture. And culture isn't something that's mysterious or ethereal. We actually can identify certain benchmarks across the board that will give us knowledge of moving in the right direction. Same too with students. Better to know, right? As we're looking at students indicating whether or not teachers offer questions that make them think, or they feel comfortable asking questions in class. Teachers present information in a way that I understand. Once you have this database, points of entry. We've all been through sit and get professional development for far too long. We don't even call it professional development. I mean, raise your hand if you'd like to be professionally developed. Not me. I think that disrespects our professional credentials rather. But knowing, what's in place here allows us to, instead of one size fits all professional learning, we're able to target exactly to the needs that teachers are identifying. And no longer do we have individuals who are saying that was just not great. It's can't wait for the next session. Why? Because it's relevant, it's meaningful, and it's what people are asking for. So we'll end on this slide. Betsy.
So as you're thinking about the culture of your building or your district, there are messages that students should receive from every adult, but also that our adults right now post-pandemic need to hear as well. And I hope you'll write these down, or as I said, we're going to send this to you. But everywhere it needs to be posted and shouted from the mountaintops. What we're doing here is important. You can do it. And my absolute favorite, I am not going to give up on you, even if you want to give up on yourself. Right now, we have staff, we have students, we have parents who want to give up. It's our obligation to give them that support and the structures and systems through a problem-solving culture that says, we're going to be with you every step of the way. And I hope as you reflect on this tonight, that you'll think about, how can I get those messages to everyone in our organization?
And it's true, Betsy, isn't it, that this is great for students? I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful if this is a school mantra? And when students are starting to, lose hope, if everybody sort of breaks into, wait a minute, this is important, you can do it, and I'm here with you all the way. Important for adults. And you know what? Colleague to colleague, when we're implementing a new program or it's a new curricula, and your next door neighbor colleague is saying, I don't know, it's kind of tough, I don't think, to resound right back, look, you are a professional educator. We've got this, we know this, and we know that we can do this. So we'll leave you with that. Thank you, friends, colleagues. I appreciate. To my partner, Betsy, you're always wonderful. And to everyone, continue to work your magic in our schools. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Have a great afternoon, and thank you for taking time. And Penny, it's always a pleasure to share the screen with you.
Same, my friend. Back to you.